Welcome to Project Freedom. I'm Brian Kapp, and we will actually be talking about what to do to prepare yourself for when you go to a dealership to buy a car. Marty, thank you for being here today.
Good morning, glad to be here.
Thanks. So, what should buyers know before going to a dealer so this way they're prepared?
Well, the first thing to know is that the car market has changed dramatically since COVID. It has turned into a seller's market because of the supply chain issues. Less cars, greater demand, higher price. So the first thing you have to contend with is knowing what the market is and being prepared. Next thing is consumers need to know what their credit score is, because the dealer is going to try to find that out as quickly as possible to know what kind of a car or what you could afford. Next thing is consumers need to know what their value, the value of their trade-in is. I suggest going to CarMax, having them do an appraisal and make you an offer. That way, when you go to the car lot, if the car dealer offers you less, you know you can always go back to CarMax and sell the car outright, take the cash and use it to buy your car. Next thing buyers need to know is what their budgeted amount is for a car payment. They need to have some sort of idea how much they want to spend for a car. After that, they need to set aside money for a down payment. Most banks will not finance the car without a down payment unless the credit score is really, really high. And the last thing the customer needs to know is what interest rate their bank would give them if they asked them for a car loan, so they can compare it to the interest rate that the dealer is offering at the car lot.
So this way, when they get there, they already have kind of one up on what to expect.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. So why and how does the salesperson profile the customer? How do they determine what this person's going to do or react or in that way?
Well, as a former car salesman, my job was to gather as much information about the customer as I could to try to use that information to my advantage later in the process. So the first thing I would ask a customer is, what are you looking for? Most people will give you some sort of an answer, and occasionally you'll get the I don't know to try to throw the salesperson off. But most people will tell you, I'm looking for an SUV, I'm looking for a small car for my daughter for her first car, just some sort of answer. That's piece of information number one, the what. Next thing I would ask them is, how long have you owned the car you're going to be trading in, if there's a trade involved, because it tells me where they might be as far as paying off their loan, how far they are to the end. If they've owned the car 4 or 5 years, I know they're probably getting close to paying it off, and they don't have a balance that I have to worry about carrying forward to another car. Because if there's a balance owed on the trade, that balance, if the dealership's going to pay it off, that's got to be moved on to the second contract and carried forward, unless they have enough down payment to wipe it out totally, the balance. Next thing I would ask a person is who their car is financed through. The reason a dealer would do that is to find out if you have an A bank or a B bank. For example, if I ask someone who their car is financed through and they say Park Finance, which is a subprime lender, I know there's probably credit issues and I'm going to have to work a little harder to make a sale to get the financing to go through. If they say Chase, Wells Fargo, PNC, some of the major lenders, then I know that I've got someone that probably has fairly good credit. That helps the dealer to know that in advance. And then I would ask them if they'd want to buy or lease, because there's rebates and specials, although those have kind of disappeared with the supply chain issues, that would make it more profitable for us to put them in a lease or a finance.
So another question I have based off of that and with the salespeople, when a husband and wife go in, why do salespeople try and split them up and get them a loan to talk to them?
That hasn't been my experience. I've never been told or tried to split a couple up. I'd want them there so one could hear the other's answer. For me, it would be just the exact opposite. I wouldn't want to split them up, because then one can't hear what the other one is saying. So it's a disadvantage as far as I'm concerned.
How do dealers make money when they sell a car?
Well, that's an interesting question, because most people think when people buy a car, the dealer makes a profit off the sale of the car, and they do. That's called the front-end profit of the deal. The markup between what the dealer paid for the car, which is the invoice price, and what the customer pays for it when they buy the car, which is the selling price. So the difference between those two numbers is generally considered the profit that the dealer makes, although there's other ways to make money. If I have a car that's worth $10,000 and the dealer offers me $8,000 and I accept that, that's $2,000 more back into the deal for profit. It's called holding back on the trade, where they offer you less than what it's actually worth wholesale. Then they could, if the worst case scenario, they could take the car to an auction and auction it off and still make $2,000 on the car. Next would be the interest rate. Most people don't understand that banks wholesale money to dealers. For example, if you go into your bank and want to get a car loan, they might give you a car loan of 6%. That same car loan, if you get it through a dealer, the dealer might get the money at 4% or 5%. Then he marks it up 1 percentage point. You go out of the dealership paying 6%, and the dealer makes a commission off that 1% spread between what he paid for the money from the bank and what you're paying as interest on the contract. That's called a profit center. So first we have the sale price of the car, then we have the trade-in value, that's another potential profit center, then we have the interest rate, and the last way that the dealer makes money is by selling extended service plans, which they get a commission from the vendor. So if you buy a tire warranty, an extended warranty on the car for service, anything to do with the car after the sale, or during the sale at the end of the sales process, that dealer is going to make money. Not only that, but the business manager who signs the paperwork with you, he's a salesperson. He's making a commission off everything he sells to you in the business office, including the markup of the interest rate. So his salary is completely based off what he is able to get you to agree to before you actually walk out the door.
Now, can a dealership let a vehicle go for below sticker? Because if you notice right now, every dealership is jacking up their prices way above sticker. Is there a way to get a dealership to go below sticker? Can they do that, or is it set in stone?
Well, let's address the issue of why do they mark the cars up over sticker. It's sort of like a drug dealer in the neighborhood. If he had the only piece of crack cocaine in the neighborhood, would he discount it? Probably not. He'd get as much for it as he could. So with the supply chain issues being what they are because of COVID, and the dealers not having as many cars as they used to on the car lot, they're adding artificial markup called addendum stickers. This is a sticker that appears next to the manufacturer's suggested retail price sticker, adding money onto the car that's basically smoke and mirrors. They're leading you to believe that it's there because they don't have a lot of cars, which is true to an extent, but they don't need to put it there. It's pure profit. That's all it is. So when they do that, the customer walks in on the defensive immediately. And if he overcomes any or all of that artificial markup and gets the dealer to take some of it away, the best you could hope for in today's market is to get down to sticker price, which the dealer is still making a full markup that he is wanting to make when he bought the car from the manufacturer in the first place. In times when cars were plentiful and they had too many cars on the lot, there would be rebates and discounts, and a dealer would sell a car at invoice price, what he paid from the manufacturer, just to move it because he didn't want to have to pay that floor plan interest to keep the car in the lot. That becomes quite a big bill. If you add it every day that car sits there, it's accruing more interest to the manufacturer. So the dealer would sell the car at invoice. But on top of that, they make a kickback from the manufacturer. When the month is over, many dealers are paid by the manufacturer based on the amount of cars they sold. And it increases based on your volume. So if a dealer sells 10 Chevys in a month, he might get $100 a car. If he sells 20 Chevys in a month, he might get $200 a car. This is after the month is over. If he sells 100 Chevys in a month, he might get $1,000 a car back from the manufacturer as a rebate of sorts for doing volume. So that affects whether they can sell the car below invoice or below sticker. If they're sitting on the 99th car and that 100th car is worth 10 grand to them, $100 per car back to the first car, retroactive, he'll sell that car for below invoice just to make that number so he can get a bigger cut from the factory when the month is over.
So when it comes to the sales, the finance, and the customers, is there some little scheme that sales and the finance and managers have to kind of get the customer, or?
Yes, they're all working in concert with the main goal of making as much profit in any of the areas I mentioned that they can from the customer. The customer is basically defenseless. Customer buys a car once every 4 or 5 to 6 years. Car dealers sell them every day. They're better at selling than most people are at buying. So when the customer goes in there, he's on the defensive automatically. The managers will sometimes come in when a salesman is having a tough time closing a car deal and having the customer say yes. They'll do what they call a TO. It's called a turnover. The salesman will turn the customer over to a manager. The manager comes in, he might take a shot at giving a discount, throwing in a set of floor mats, something he thinks will turn the customer into a yes. And the business manager, he's not your friend. None of them are your friend. Even if you bought a car several times from the same person, all that does is give him more trust from you to manipulate you. You're thinking you're getting a better deal. He's thinking, wow, the guy trusts me, my paycheck's going to go up. So it's all done to maximize the profit for the dealer.
Another question I have for you is, with used cars and used car dealers, how do they determine what they're going to sell the vehicle for that they have, and how do they determine the price that they're going to give you for your trade-in?
Okay, first things first. Dealers typically want to be competitive with other dealers in their market. So if dealer A in Stewart is selling a particular car for a certain price, he doesn't want to be too far out of the market as far as having it more expensive than dealer B up the road in Fort Pierce selling an identical car. So typically, and I'm going back to when I was in the business several years ago, they would mark the cars up $2,000 to $4,000 over what they paid for it wholesale. And what they paid for it includes what they had to do to the car to make it ready for sale. For example, if it needed tires, it needed brakes, it needed a tune-up, it needed some dents removed, whatever it needed, that they add that onto their wholesale cost of what they paid for the vehicle, and then they add about $2,000 to $4,000 over that to be competitive with other dealers in their market. Which brings me to, how do they decide what to give you for your car? The dealers used to use a black book, which showed them auction results weekly from the local auctions. So they'd get a book on Monday morning, and it would show them what cars were sold for at auction the previous week. You roll in with your car, they look in the book, they would be able to tell approximately what that car was worth to them, wholesale. Now they use a system which is computerized called vAuto, the letter V like Victor, Auto. And vAuto is an online auction report that's current, meaning a dealer can look in vAuto and see what a car like the one you're trading in sold for at the auction yesterday. So they have an up-to-date knowledge of the market and what cars, used cars, are selling for. That helps them place a value on your car. The value they give you for your car can also be inflated if they have excess markup in the one they're selling you. So in a new car scenario where they've added $5,000 to $10,000 over the sticker price because of demand and short supply, they can take some of that money, add it on to the value of the car that you're trading in, and let you think you're getting more for it than the guy down the street would offer you for it. It's smoke and mirrors. They're just moving money that never existed on a new car and giving it and letting you think you got more for your trade-in. So that's basically how the selling and the buying works. Your car is worth X amount of dollars. They know from the auction what it sold for. They add about $2,000 to $4,000 onto their car. That could have increased recently because of the supply and demand. So I would say that it's probably more like $5,000 plus on an average car over what they paid for it, because they can get it now. There's less cars in the marketplace. You have to be aware of that.
What are your final thoughts on what our viewers should do to prepare for when they get ready to go to a dealership to look for a vehicle?
My final thoughts would be this. car dealers want to gather as much information about you and the car you're trading in and the car you're buying to give them an edge in the buying process. The more they know about you, the more advantage that they have in the selling process. I would give out information sparingly, but I would know a lot about my own situation. I would know what my credit rating was. And the car dealers use a credit bureau, there are 3 of them, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And the car dealers use Equifax because the weight of the Equifax score is geared toward retail purchases like cars. So TransUnion and Experian are more toward revolving credit, like a Macy's card if you're applying for one, or that type of purchase. So I'd find out what my Equifax credit score was. I'd find out what the value of my car was or is by taking it to a reputable either online or local car buying service who could put a value on it. At least that way when I go into the car lot to make my purchase, I know approximately what someone else would give me for the car to compare it to what the car dealer will offer me. Car dealers notoriously lowball a buyer when they bring a car in for trade. They offer them less than they know the car's worth just to take their temperature to see if they'll bite. If they take advantage of it, if the seller, you, sells your car cheap to a dealer, they'll take it all day long, and then they'll mark it up and make even more money when they resell your trade-in. I'd also know how much money I had available for a down payment because it's going to reduce the amount you finance, which will affect how much interest you pay on the loan. And I would also know what my bank would offer me as far as interest to compare it with what the dealer's going to offer me. And one thing you didn't mention, which is should a consumer go to their credit union as opposed to going to the bank that the dealer is representing, I would check both rates. I would find out what a credit union rate is, because by using a credit union for a car purchase, you're essentially taking cash to the dealer. Dealers don't like that because the business managers make a commission off the car loan by inflating the interest rate. They don't like to sell cars for cash normally because they don't make as much money. So that would be my final thoughts. I think the public should be armed with knowledge. They can get that knowledge on the internet. They can talk to people that have been in the business like myself who give them information freely. And hopefully they don't get taken advantage of when they go to buy a car.